Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. Glad you could join us on a Friday. Listen, this story is not going away. We covered it the first hour. We took a gazillion calls in regards to General Qasem Soleimani, or as I like to call him, Salami, because that's probably what his body looks like now. And that's probably a good thing. I'm sorry if you're eating breakfast right now, but we will be continuing to talk about this. It's not going away. Was it the right move for President Donald Trump? Was it the right move for this country? This is a conversation that we will continue, I promise you, on Monday as well, because I'm sure we're going to get more information over the weekend about everything that took place. But let's get to the local stuff now, because, we've been covering a lot of local news. Usually it's not positive, sadly. We covered that accident that took place last week at Desert Inn in Durango that killed, just totally executed a family. Just a horrible, tragic story. Well, now we're going to talk about our school systems, which you could also say here in Las Vegas is tragic. We have some really, really, really bad school systems right here in Las Vegas. We talk about it all the time, and the reason why we wanted John Brookhagen from Affinity, the Math Institute, to be in studio here is because he's a former Clark County Schools District teacher. Now he's doing his own thing. John, I want to just give a little, and good for you to be here, John. I want to give a little bit of background on this specific story, and I want to get your reaction to it because it's frightening, really. Basic Academy of International Studies in Henderson. I've actually been to this school before, and I've officiated some basketball games there. Nice school. I thought it was nice facilities, right? So they've lost 3 of its assistant principals during just ended semester.
All 3.
Yeah, amid growing safety concerns among staff members. There's a woman by the name of Melanie Snively. I believe I'm pronouncing her name right. There's a video that went viral, posted on Instagram in October, where she's seen pushing and grabbing a student in an attempt to redirect the minor to another part of the school. There was a fight that broke out, and she claimed she was, and I believe her, by the way. She claimed she was trying to break up the fight. In 24 years with the district, Snively said she's been hit, spat on, cursed at, but that discipline cases have risen sharply, by her estimate in the past few years. Let me just give a stat. 2013, 2014. Basic reported 27 instances of violence against students versus 78 last year. So this is a huge issue.
Was that students against teachers?
Yes, correct. That's a lot. And when we look at what has taken place now in this school where 3 assistant principals have stepped down, probably not because of wrongdoing, but because they just they're in fear of their safety. As a former Clark County School District teacher yourself, what do you make of this story, number one? And number two, did you see anything like this going on? And by the way, I just want to tell everyone on our Twitter page right now, you can see this fight that Snively had with this student in a hallway. So what are your thoughts on this, John?
Well, first of all, I want to say thanks for having me on.
Sure.
Happy New Year, JD, Brian. It's good to see you guys again and growing. This is one of many reasons why I left the CCSD. I have personal experience in a situation like this. We would try to become more inclusive, whether that's for misbehaving students or special education students or students with disabilities. We're trying to be more and more inclusive as, we grow socially and stuff like that. Mentally challenged children used to go to separate schools, and we found that it's best for them to be included in the regular schools and stuff like that. And the only reason I bring up that topic is because my own personal experience, I was teaching at a school and a child with a learning disability who was 13 or 14-year-old, and I don't know if your listeners know, but he was JD's size. He was 6'1",
JD is a big dude.
Yeah, he's 6'1".
You don't want to mess with JD.
225 pounds, and a 13-year-old kid with a mental disability, and he started losing his mind. He started picking up trash cans, started throwing it at people, and
right.
I don't know if he was actually threatening any one particular person or anything like that, but he was definitely out of control.
You were in the classroom when this was going on?
It was in the cafeteria, as a matter of fact.
Yep. And this is when you were a Clark County teacher?
Yes. And the kids around him were definitely in danger. And the kid was definitely out of control. And we're taught as teachers to step aside and let this happen.
Even if he's attacking another student?
Right. Even if he's attacking another student. You're supposed,
really?
You're not supposed, if you get involved, heaven forbid 2 girls get into a fight and you grab a girl.
What if somebody is getting? What if a child is getting pummeled on the ground and her safety is in huge jeopardy? You're telling me the Clark County School District protocol is teachers do not ever put their hand on a student?
Yes. Yeah.
See, I don't agree with that.
Right. Well, there's a lot of things that you wouldn't agree with if you, take it for, if a student punches a teacher.
Are they afraid
in
of lawsuits? Is that why? That's gotta be why.
100%.
It's
God
all about
forbid
money.
your pinky rubs against a girl's hip.
Because let me tell you something. If I have a kid, or John, I know you have kids. If one of your kids is in the Clark County School District and you have somebody that is twice their size on top of them pummeling them, you damn well right I would want a teacher to get involved and help my kid.
There's a zero tolerance policy for fighting.
All they care about is lawsuits.
There was a girl at the beginning of last year who, first of all, was 15 years old in middle school. She got held behind 2 years, and she was going to age out. Once you turn 15 or 16, you age out of middle school. But she hadn't quite aged out, so she was still there. Now, this girl was 2 years older and twice the size of any other girl at the school.
Right.
She was absolutely a menace to the school. She attacked 3 different teachers, and she attacked 3 different students, all within the first 3 weeks of school last year.
Sounds like one of my ex-girlfriends, yep.
And she, and all 3 of the other students she attacked, all 3 of them tried to get away, saying, I don't want a problem, and ran. One of them, which
she was
my
suspended,
student,
right?
Well, the one that was my student who literally turned and ran away from the girl grabbed her from behind and fought her. Both girls got suspended equally. Even though the one girl did everything, she didn't instigate the fight, she didn't partake in the fight, she told the girl calmly she didn't want to fight, and then when she realized that wasn't going to work, she tried to run away. And the girl gets suspended for 3 days. And meanwhile, the problem is this girl doesn't belong in the school atmosphere.
Right.
And I don't know if you've been reading the articles, but, it's administrators such as the one at Basic High School. They're saying that, it's the 1% of students that are causing all the disruptions. But as we continue to not enforce our rules because of racist concerns, because suspensions are higher for African Americans than they are for white people and
But if
Asian
I can
people.
interject for what you were saying, I don't disagree with what you are saying in regards to the school district, in both of our opinions, is not handling these situations the way they should. However, something that we have not talked about, which I know you're going to agree with me on, is parenting too. The parents need to be involved here. If your kid is involved in a physical altercation, you have to make sure that never happens again. Now, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you how to be a parent, but you got to figure out a way to do it. JD, do you agree with that? Put your mic on.
John, have you found out any economic background correlations with students like this you just described?
First of all, Clark County's, everybody who lives in Vegas understands there's a big disparity between the lows and the highs. And a lot of these people live in the same neighborhoods. I know up the block from here is Clark. Up the block from here is Michael Jackson's old house, who takes up a whole city block, which people probably drive by it and don't even realize it was Michael Jackson's house.
I like the Clark County School District. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I bet you he does. But it's super multi-million-dollar estate.
He did.
And right down the block, you have apartments for $800 a month.
Right.
You know what I mean? So every single school in Clark County School District has a huge disparity between the lowest earners and the lowest socioeconomics and the highest.
So you must feel, though, you have to, as a former CCSD teacher, you've got to feel for these 3 assistant principals who just decided to resign, right? You understand why they resigned.
I don't feel just for them. I feel for all the educators, not only in Clark County, in America.
Right.
I'm 43 years old. You guys are, maybe not JD.
I'm close to there.
Yeah, but you're approaching my age.
I'm not reciprocal. I'm 34.
All right. So when we were kids, 1 out of 8, 10
Wasn't a
kids
huge issue.
wanted to be a teacher.
Right.
They wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah, that's true.
Zero.
Yeah.
0 of them.
A lot of women did.
Nobody wants to be a teacher anymore. Nobody.
Well, I think
And
there's a lot of reasons for that. They put up
there's
with
a
a
lot of
It's a
reasons
stressful
for it.
job. They put up with a lot of crap. The
They
pay
don't
is
get paid
pay
a
is
lot.
garbage.
The hours are
benefits
long.
aren't fantastic. The hours are terrible.
And it's getting worse and
And
worse.
the kids are misbehaving. Right? That's getting worse and worse, isn't
It's
it?
getting worse.
Yeah.
We used to have behavior schools here in Clark County School District
Yep.
where anybody who got in trouble a certain amount of times, like the girl I mentioned from last year, they would go to this behavior school and they would have special teachers there who are meant to deal with these things. And maybe it wasn't a perfect system. Nothing is. But at least you took this out. I kept telling people, they talk about class sizes and how we need smaller class sizes. The class sizes aren't the problem. It's just the percentages. If you have 10% of kids are a big nuisance in your class.
Right.
If you give me a class of 50 kids and let me get rid of 5 of them, I could teach a class of 50, no problem. It's the one or two kids that are constantly a problem, and
That need
we
to
are
be
taking
taken-
away the tools
And
to
those
get
are
rid
the
of them.
those are the one or two students that need to be taken out of the classroom because they ruin it for everyone else, including the teachers, and it is a problem. If you're just joining us, we are speaking with John Brookhagen from Infinity the Math Institute. He is a former CCSD teacher. The story we are talking about is it happened right here in Henderson. 3 Henderson high school administrators, assistant principals have left amid safety concerns. In fact, one of those teachers, a video that was posted back in October where she's trying to break up a fight. She did put her hands on a student. I don't see anything wrong with that. And we're taking your calls on this. And here's the question I want to pose to people that are listening right now. Are you a teacher or do you have a kid in the Clark County School District? If you do you have a story you would like to share with us? What do you think about these 3 assistant principals that have stepped down? Do you think the behavior of students getting worse and worse? Do you blame the teachers? Do you blame the administrators? Do you blame the district as a whole? We want to hear from you right now. The number to call, 702-257-5396. Again, that number, if you'd like to be a part of this conversation, is 702-257-5396. What do you make of the Clark County School District? What do you make of these 3 administrators, these 3 assistant principals that stepped down? They're in fear of their safety, and they've had enough. And do you think that this is going to happen more in the future, John?
Yeah, and, just to finish my story with the big kid who was JD's size,
Yeah.
My instincts kicked in to protect the children. I went up to the kid quickly, bear hugged him from behind, and I whispered softly into, hey, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. So physically I was big and bear hugging him and trying to subdue him, but at the same time I was trying to diffuse the situation by, calmly talking to him, saying, hey, bro, it's going to be all right. Let's just take a breath.
And John, you're not a small guy either. You're about 6'5".
Yeah, and I got in a lot of trouble.
Let me be very clear on this, okay? I would hate to say that all teachers need to wear body cameras like police officers, but if that's what it takes, fine.
Bro.
Here's the reason why I say that. If there is a fight between students, first of all, it's not just the students that are in the fight that are at risk of getting hurt. It's other students anywhere within the area. And you understand how these things happen, right? When a fight breaks out, all the students get up. They want to watch. They all gather.
Crowd mentality.
Right. And then
and they pull out their cell phones.
Well, and then that can create other fights. You never know what's going to happen here, right? So that is why I say
actually creates no one. When there's a fight and there's 50 or 60 students watching it, no one's actually going to step
How
in.
about 200 or 300?
I remember
no one's going to step in at that point.
Right.
There was actually a book written about that by Malcolm Gladwell.
Do you remember, guys, the movie Lean on Me with Morgan Freeman?
Yes.
One of my favorite movies of all time, a true story. And if you recall watching the first 5 minutes of that movie, it starts out with the song from Guns N' Roses, "Welcome to the Jungle,"
Yep.
and it just shows you. I don't want to see any schools in Las Vegas turn into that. But if you're not letting teachers help in any situation physically, then I think that is a problem.
Any of these movies that we watched when we were kids, whether it's Lean on Me, Dangerous Minds with Michelle Pfeiffer,
Right.
or the one about the Bolivian calculus teacher in Los Angeles, if you watched any of those teachers that were heroes in the movies, any of their actions would get them fired or suspended at CCSD.
Yeah.
Any one of them.
By the way, you just brought up that movie. Coolio lives in Las Vegas. I actually saw him
Does
at a
he?
bar.
I didn't know that.
I actually saw him at a bar literally right down the street from here. Gangsta's Paradise.
Does his hair still look the same?
What about Freedom Riders with Hilary Swank? Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you have to watch that. That was outstanding.
Let's take some phone calls on this. And again, I asked the question, if you're a teacher or have a kid in the Clark County School District, you don't even have to say who you are, where you work. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your stories. Is this really what's going on in the Clark County School District? What do we need to do about it? So 257-5396, the number to call. We have a retired school officer for the Clark County School District.
This should be good.
His name is Calvin. Calvin, thank you so much for calling in. I'm sure you have a lot to say when it comes to this issue.
Yeah, I have a lot to say. A lot of times the administration will deal with kids in such a way that treat them like babies. When they commit these crimes on school property, they should be off. And like the gentleman said earlier, we used to have these alternative schools that the kids would go to. As a school police officer, I could handpick 5 to 10 kids off every school in Clark County, and we have no problems on our campuses. The problem is some of those kids have no business in a public school setting or any school setting. They need to be as far away from school as possible, but the law won't allow us to do that.
Hey, Calvin, can I ask you a question? And thank you very much for how many years did you serve as a resource officer?
I served as a school police officer here for 30 years.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
And I was
Thank you.
I was primarily designed to deal with the gang-related kids. So that's why I know about Peterson, Biltmore, and all those alternative schools.
Good.
That's why I used to start my morning.
Can I ask
But
you
like
a specific question, Calvin?
Yes, you can.
Have you ever been asked specifically to downplay or not report students' criminal behavior in order to.
Yes, I have.
And that's
Wow.
exactly what I'm talking
That's
about.
crazy.
So,
And
Calvin,
not only downplay, it's like you're told, well, their parents are going to be very litigious, so just, don't create a problem that you don't have to.
Calvin, may I ask, can you give us a specific story of one of the worst examples of what John just asked you, where a student broke the law and you were told not to really report on it? Can you give us a story like that, if that's okay?
Here's a story, and I don't know if the teacher may be listening, but I was working at Shine High School. This kid walks up behind a teacher with a starter gun,
Oh, my
pulls
God.
the trigger, goes off, and this kid was only RPC. My thing, I wanted to arrest him, and I was told by administration, and I don't want to throw racism and stuff in here, but he was a kid that was a Mormon kid,
Oh,
and
boy.
they said they're gonna let the elder at the church deal with that kid.
Oh.
That kid should have went straight to jail. I don't care.
You know what? I'll say it for you.
Nothing.
Calvin, I'm going to say it for you. I'm white.
Yeah.
I will say it for you. Okay? I believe with what you just told me, I'm just going to say it. If he was an African American, I would say they probably wouldn't have treated him that way.
Well, to be honest, I mean,
Well,
I
I
believe
don't
that
know
the
about
color.
that because-
Calvin,
I don't
do
know
you
about
agree
that
with me?
because when I worked, I was fair, and I didn't care what race you were.
Exactly.
If you committed a crime, I took care of it.
Who
And
told
the
you to
teachers-
downplay that? Who told you
that
to?
That came from the top administration in our schools, the principal and it also went out to the district office. It came from doing Brian Cram. It came from all of those guys.
So you're telling me that you've had many instances as 30 years as a retired school officer where you've seen kids literally commit crimes, and you're telling me
Yes.
from the top, from the principal and all the way up, they've told you to leave it alone and downplay
Leave
that
it
stuff.
alone and let it go.
And Calvin, why do you think that is?
I think it's because you have to understand, whether you want to realize or not, there are political things that happen inside our school systems as well. And a lot of times it may rub somebody wrong at the top. But to be honest with you, I frankly don't care how I rub anybody. And
Right.
if you and the people that know me, that I used to work for the district, teachers felt safe coming to the schools that I worked at. Because I'd be damned if I let anybody hurt anybody.
Well, I'll tell you what, Calvin, I wish there were more people out there like you, my friend. I really do appreciate your phone call and your perspective and your story. And thank you so much for your service to the Clark County School District. You sound like a great man, and we appreciate your perspective. Thank you so much.
Thanks for sharing,
Have a great
Calvin.
day.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Calvin.
Wow. 702-257-5396. The question we are posing, if you're a teacher or if you have kids in the Clark County School District, do you have a story? Do you think that students' behavior getting worse? Do you blame the Clark County School District? Do you blame teachers? Do you blame principals? In the last guy who just called in, Calvin, he's saying that the principal all the way up to the top were telling him to downplay these situations, but he said he didn't have these types of problems because he took his job very seriously. And we're also talking about these 3 Henderson High School administrators that have decided to leave because they're in fear of their safety. The number to call, 702-257-5396. Again, 257-5396.
And I pose a second question. If you are a young parent, I'm talking having a child that's not quite in the school age range yet, based on what you've heard in this last 25 minutes, would you want your child to attend CCSD or a private school?
That's a good question. Let's take another phone call. Let's go to Gene. Gene, you are next up on the Vegas Take. What do you make of all this?
I can. I'll tell you. I can tell you the big problem with the kids and their behavior today is what you just said to Calvin. Is you assumed that because the kid was white, he wasn't going to be punished, and you assumed that because the kid is black, they would be punished, and that's the problem because now everybody's handcuffed. Because if a kid that's African American does get out of line, then they have to handle it with kid gloves. And I'm not saying that the white kid should have got away with it either. But what you automatically assume that every white kid gets over it.
No, I didn't say every.
black kid
No,
gets
I
punished.
didn't say every
Well,
single
I didn't
white
say
kid.
every,
No, but it could
but
be implied
you
based on what you
assumed
said.
right away that because the kid was a Mormon, that it was a white kid,
Well,
and that's why he got
I
away.
am basing it on a man that has 30 years experience that told me that it was a Mormon kid who committed a very, that is a heinous, that's a felony that you could,
Yes.
okay, that's a felony that kid committed. And then you're telling me that, a principal tells him, well, let him just handle it in his church. Do you think that let me ask you a question now. Do you think, listen, I could be wrong. I'm just giving you my opinion. Do you think if that was an African-American and his family was at a Baptist church, do you think that the principal would have said, just let his Baptist church handle that? It's a simple question.
This brings me to my next point. I mean, California has
something that I
already
couldn't
passed
tell
the
you.
laws regarding suspensions and stuff like that in order to curb the racial divide. So,
Yes.
for example, a school has 10% African Americans, but the African Americans make up 25% of the suspensions in the school,
Right.
which is why we're watering down all these things. And in order to possibly make up for things that happened in the past, like the one this gentleman said,
Yeah.
you know, I've seen experience at CCSD where white kids have a small problem and they get suspended, and
Right.
African American student might have drugs on them and they don't in order to fix the numbers.
And that makes
the
sense.
thing is, we got to
Yeah.
stop looking at the color of people's skin. And, you know,
In a
like
perfect-
Dr. Martin Luther King said,
In a-
let's
it has
just
to
judge
be
them on the
based on
content of their
merit.
character.